Howdy Daydreamers, and welcome to Dakota Daydreams. I'm Dakota, and today we're going back to the Bedside Garden for episode 12. And this week we've hit another milestone, 50 subscribers. I'm actually at 64 last time I checked, so thank you to everyone who is watching, liking, and subscribing the videos. I really appreciate your support. And real quick, I really want to give some shout outs to the people who helped me grow. Miss Lashona from Lashona Success has been giving shout outs in her lives for so many new content creators, and it's helped me find a lot of new people that are doing all kinds of different things. Mr. Pete from Pete's Cornish Garden for shouting out my rule book in the Onion News the other week, and Mr. Chad from Down Home Backyard Gardening for shouting me out during the Coast to Coast for participating in the Tomato Challenge. Now, if you found yourself wondering, wait a minute, what rule book? That's because the Garden Challenge rulebook is an idea I had in the middle of February, and I just kind of up and did it without properly vlogging or announcing it. And my idea for it is that in addition to having notes of what challenges I'm watching or participating in, I can have those same notes, but then add my voice to them and share them so that if I got a detail incorrect, the creator of the challenge can correct me and I can fix it. Or if others are interested in finding challenges, they can play through the playlist and see if any of them are something they can participate in or would like to learn from. And real quick on our way back into the garden, March is the last full month for hashtag WIG 2024, and it ends on April 4th, which would be after my usual posting day, so my last video for WIG is actually going to be on the last Sunday of March. Now back to this garden. So far, everything's still growing, but the soil in these pots keeps getting extremely dry. And I may have accidentally gotten the Roselle a little too humid to the point where it was wet for a little while. It's not looking too good. I think the smaller one might even be starting to try and turn on me, so I'm gonna get some peroxide on that. But the good news is these bachelor's buttons did root in a very healthy manner, and one of them's even trying to escape the seed in the cup. So we're gonna get those moved while I'm cleaning that up. And when I'm pouring over the peroxide, I try to be very careful because I don't want to put too much in and overwhelm the plant, but I want to put enough in that it overwhelms the nastiness trying to grow on the plant. And you see that right there? That's the peroxide breaking down the nastiness that was trying to set into the food. So we're just going to pour just a little bit more on it and help it break down all of that ickiness in there and see if we can save one or both of these. I'm not sure if this tiny one's going to make it. But while I was cleaning them up, I did notice that this spinach has started to grow what looks like a couple new leaves that are still curled up. So it's still growing. It's just very small for a very long time, it feels like. And the spinach distracted me, so I did forget to film planting the bachelor's buttons, but I put two into the hydroponics and then I put two into this seed starting pot. I'm not going to call it empty. It's got seeds in it and they're gonna grow. I'm willing it. And it looks like the Roselle's trying to push all of the bad into the two leaves that have gone mushy, but the other two leaves are still very solid and healthy looking. So I'm gonna see if maybe I can get in there and help it. So while I was pulling the mushy leaves off, I noticed that it hasn't actually securely rooted to the sponge yet, but the bottom part is trying to grow roots. So however rough the top looks, the roots are trying. So as long as the plant's trying, I'm gonna try with it. But if we come over and I turn on my flashlight, we might be able to see that my giant onion seed has started to put little leaves out. They're very difficult to see even in person, so I don't know if they're going to pick up on camera yet, but there are little teeny tiny leaves starting to go around the edge of that core above the root. So the hydroponics are all right. They're growing. And we're going to come over and look at the figs for just a minute. Now, these figs have kind of been through it with me. I keep letting their soil dry out, but they still turn green when I water them. It's actually one way I can tell if there's enough water in the pots is when they're moist enough, the long ones get really green. They're still kind of loose, and I don't see any true root growth yet, but they're still alive. But now that we've made it to the middle of the week, it's time for Catalog of the Week. This week, it's Tomato Growers Supply Company. They're celebrating 41 years in business, and they have some crazy tomatoes available. Inside of their front cover, they have a mini index, so you can see they do have more than just tomatoes, but tomatoes are their widest selections. And the first one that caught my eye was this orange ox heart, because I've seen the standard ox hearts. They look good, and it looks like the sauce people make from them is good, but imagine an orange tomato sauce. I just, I'm gonna have to grow those one day. And then I saw this Lady Sophia, which is apparently the size of this person's hand. And that, mm, with all of the different tomato grow-offs, that sounds like a good one. They have a Brandywine black potato leaf, and you'll notice that the colors around them keep changing as we go through the catalog. And that's because the tomato supply company has color coded their tomatoes by early season, mid season, and late season fruiting plants. A German red strawberry, which is a beautiful strawberry shaped tomato that even has a little bit of the green stay around the top. So I definitely see why they called it a strawberry. They even have several small cherry tomato varieties and small dwarf size plant varieties, but I think my personal favorite was a tie between the Rapunzel and the glitter hybrids because those look good. They even have a section for bicolor tomatoes, like these gold medals or copias, and they have so many different variations of bicolor tomato. They even have Cherokee purple tomato seeds, and they're offering 30 seeds for 325. So if anyone's interested in hashtag Cherokee Purple 2025 and you haven't ordered your seeds yet, Tomato Supply has them. They even have green sausage tomatoes, which look a bit like cucumbers to me, and yellow stuffer tomatoes, which are hollow on the inside, kind of like a bell pepper, but a tomato. That's wild. And then in the center by their order form, they have bulk shipping prices, so if you want to get a lot of seeds, you can see how much you would save. But the tomatoes are not the only place they have wild and interesting varieties. For example, in their peppers, they have pimento peppers. I've seen them processed, but I don't think I've seen seeds for them before. And they have this wild cayenne sweetness hybrid that has all of the chili pepper colors on one plant, but they're sweet chilies. Or the sweet sunset hybrid that looks like you grabbed a sunset out of the sky and turned it into a pepper. Among their spicy peppers, I found the Bolivian rainbow and Bulgarian carrot. That really does look like a carrot too. Could you imagine seeing that on a counter and expecting a carrot? And it is a hot pepper. They don't say how many Scovilles it is, but they sorted it to hot, so Imma guess a few. And then flip the page from those and find Explosive Ember, which I thought was an orchid that had been missorted at first, but it's a pepper that holds the fruit up in orchid-like shapes. And it's listed as an ornamental, but I'm wondering if it's also edible. I feel like it probably is if they have it in the middle of the edible ones, but definitely do your research before you get that one. They also have the Atlantic giant pumpkin seeds, just in case you were looking to enter the giant pumpkin growing challenge this year. And they even have potato seeds, not seed potatoes, potato seeds. And then the last 3 or 4 pages of the catalog is a very detailed index of everything in it. So if you know what you want exactly, you can find it back here. If you'd like to grab your own free copy of the Tomato Grower Supply Company catalog, pop down in my description for a link. And while I was out grocery shopping, I found a seed display at Food Lion in the produce section. So I grabbed some new spinach, and it looks like this one has a faster grow time, and I thought that might help with how impatient I'm being with the other spinach. But before I had time to set any seeds from that up, I noticed that this hibiscus was not doing well. It looks like I forgot to recap it after the last time I'd spritzed it, and it dried out. But then when I touched it, the top part was not dry at all. It was just mush. But it felt like the roots were still solid and alive. So I'm just gonna try pinching that off and seeing if the roots can recover. And then I'm finally going to pull this one up with some tweezers and see if I can figure out what's going on with it. It looks like it started to try to make a root, but then it looks like the top leaves have just sort of wrapped around it like a lettuce. And it's got a piece of seed shell that looks like a whole seed shell inside the cup, but it's also holding one and wrapped around one. And I'm not totally sure which one's solid and which one's hollow or what's going on with that. But I think it's fair to say that the leaves closest to it have completely disintegrated, and I'm gonna just try again on this cup. And then I have 1 out of 3 Ailsae onions rooting in what's left of the hydroponic start cup, but I think I'm just gonna go ahead and add those into the soil now. And I'm trying to be patient for another week before I restart the single seed challenge. Um, it still hasn't come up. I haven't seen any sign of the seed in the pot. but it's just been really dry. So maybe if I water it really heavily and it thinks it's rained, it'll start growing. And I definitely recommend a watering can for this because trying to do it with a sprayer can get very hard on the hands very quickly because you have to spray it a lot. A lot of the water is just going up into the air and it's just barely getting the top of the soil wet. Underneath it's still dry as a bone. So I have to keep spraying it until it sits and sinks into the soil and then spray it a couple more times so it actually sinks all the way to the part of the soil where the roots are supposed to be so I don't have roots trying to grow across the top of the soil and then air pruning themselves. Because I think that may be what's been happening. And while the flower seeds are still showing signs of growth, all of them are still very little and they won't really pick up on camera under the foil. But this little spinach back here is finally opening some new leaves. So maybe it just had a little bit of a stall for a minute from changing the plant food. And now it's starting to pick back up now that it's gotten used to it, hopefully. But if it takes too much longer, I'm gonna go ahead and start some of those quick grow spinaches. And always check the surface of your soil for any seeds that are trying to run away, because I had to rebury this one when I went to water the plants this morning. It seems like having them on daily sprayer watering until I get a watering can is really helping this marigold, which is up to at least 3 flower buds now. And soon that marigold will be ready for hashtag Flowers Everlasting 2025. My own personal challenge out to everybody to take pictures of the flowers around you and capture the memory of why that flower is important. Whether it's a flower or a fruit flower, vegetable flower, herb flowers, all kinds of flowers. And then if you use the hashtag and tag me, I'll enter them in the Flowers Everlasting spotlight at the end of my videos. I've already heard from some people that they're interested in what they're growing, and I'm very excited for when it's ready to share. And thank you for dreaming with me. Don't forget to check my description for links to the channels I've mentioned, challenges I'm participating in, and much, much more. If you click the links to your right, you'll find the Garden Challenge rulebook on the bottom, and then a playlist for the bedside garden from the very beginning at the top. Please leave a comment below to let me know you were here so I can say hey. And until next time, take care of yourself and keep your head in the clouds.